Racing Louisville threatened by relocation. Are other teams in danger? And we have a badge review. So the top performers in the lower leagues of the United States. That and more on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show that dots the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape. Hope you are well. Thanks for joining. My name, Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, Jason Davis, radio soccer guy. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm my last day in the on the beautiful. You're on an island. You're not in an island, right? You're on an island, like you're on Long Island. I'm on the island of Puerto Rico, leaving today. A little bit sad about that part, but glad to be here and excited to get back home and get into what's next for Morning Kickaround and for American soccer. And I know we're building up. I see Mr. Bob is in the building already this morning doing Mr. Bob-like things. So let's go ahead and clang the clanger for Mr. Bob for hooking us up again. Doing the thing, Mr. Bob, out there in Albuquerque, New Mexico, supporting the show. You can support the show, too. You don't have to give gift memberships, although that is obviously very welcomed. You can just sign up and be an ultra on your own, or you can subscribe, do all of those things, all those important things, Rob, especially as we get ready for Kickathon 2, the quest for more kicks, September 16th, 9 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, we're going to go long that day. Our second marathon show, subathon, fundraiser, and hopefully lots of big guests and some announcements and some fun in the mix there.
We have not yet committed to this internally. There has not been this discussion. You can see I'm a little ruffled today because, again, Puerto Rico, getting on a plane in a couple hours. We have not discussed this yet, but I think that might be 9 a.m. until question mark kind of situation, depending on how much support we get and people stepping up and joining and all those things. So I see you also got a new member here. Jonathan is a new member. Shout out to Jonathan.
Hey.
Jonathan, if you're a new member, if you picked up a subscription from Mr. Bob, or you're like Jonathan and you joined, and again, Jonathan deserves it. I know we can't clang too much because then it'll
interrupting
make
people's coffee here with that.
Well, it's interrupting people's coffee. Bleeding ears is what I'm mostly worried about with the clang. But and I saw some people wearing clang shirts out there. Our guy Tulsa Mario wearing a clang shirt out in the wild. If you are a new member, if you are a new ultra, drop your location, your general location, your town, where you're watching us from, your favorite clubs, and we will dot the map. And that's better done when I'm back home in my usual studio. There in Northern Virginia. So drop your location, your preferred labeled name, and your clubs, and we will dot the map. And you can be one of the ultras on our wonderful growing map.
Yeah, we typically round out the week on Friday at the end of our Friday live show with the Dot the Map segment. And since you've been away from home, we could possibly have quite a few with 2 weeks of dots to add. Hopefully, those new members get their dots in there. Ninja Jaguar, yeah,
that's Jonathan. He's Ninja Jaguar, which come on, that's so much better. That's so much better than, nothing against the name Jonathan, but Ninja Jaguar. My God.
Yeah, I want to guess now where the Ninja Jaguars are. Oh, we got Grand Rapids in the mix. So
Michigan showing up again. Michigan is fully represented on this show. Let me tell you.
I was going to say we might save this for Kickathon 2 in September, but we kind of have a duel for MK Ultras. Michigan versus Virginia might be weighted Michigan ways. You got to get your neighbors recruited into this show.
I'm not as tied in. So I've always been, and this is not, there's no value judgment happening here. I'm just making a statement of fact. I've always been a nationally focused guy. I've written, podcasted, and done radio about national soccer issues. Big leagues, professional clubs, the national team. I'm not as tied into the local community of soccer the way that Rob Kerr is. Rob is a Michigan soccer staple, I think, at this point. And so you've got a whole network of people like, I know that guy, Rob Kerr. Doesn't he call games for Oakland County? Isn't he involved? And then people are backing. That's great, man. That's incredible.
Well, I look forward to Dot and Grand Rapids on the map. Adding another Grand Rapids, I'm sure we already have at least one. But yes, indeed, Michigan for the win. But you gotta get your neighbors out there. You gotta get the community on board and get them into the
Yeah.
ultra scene here.
I do. You're right. You're right. I do. And again, local soccer is the lifeblood of soccer in this country, and it's going to be the biggest place for growth. I mean, today we're going to talk about professional soccer and the state of it particularly in the NWSL and some other things. The business of soccer at that level, which is important, right? And we have to acknowledge that professional teams with big, quote unquote, big payrolls and all that stuff are very important to the further growth of soccer. But we should remember, and I think this is where this show has found its lane, we should remember that really there's so much more room for growth locally with smaller clubs, professional or not, that's really going to be the thing that pushes American soccer forward. And you may not see, it may not be obvious the impact of that, say on our national teams or whatever. You may not be able to connect immediately those dots between lower division, small time, summer, local amateur clubs, and maybe even lower division American professional soccer clubs, and what happens with our teams at the World Cup. But absolutely, those things are all connected. The more fun soccer is, the more connected people are to their clubs, the more kids are playing, the more fans there are, the more interest in the system, which drives more growth of more club. If somebody down the road goes, "Oh my God, did you see that club? They're getting 3,000 out in the middle of the summer for game." Well, we should do that too. That's how that works.
Yeah. And apparently, according to the Athletic, their metrics are off the chart. People are hungry for soccer news like they haven't been before. So that's an
In my
interesting
inbox
note.
today, a whole thing about today is this weekend is a massive weekend for soccer in America. Do you know why, Rob?
Because the
Why?
Premier League's coming.
Because the
Because
Premier
it's
League
big
is
for
coming back.
America. Because
And
I
I
think
was
we're
like,
talking about the same article.
is that what we're doing right now? Come on, newsletter writer guy at the Athletic. Are you really nothing against the Premier League? I have a team. Rob has a team. We care about the Premier League. That's not American soccer. Not the way that we think about it.
A little bit of a change of subject, but next summer, we teased it a little bit this year, trying to get you into the community soccer. There's no world, or this isn't a domestic based World Cup. So we got to get you out to like Virginia Dream Games or one of those other summer amateur, or we got to get you embedded in the local soccer
Yeah,
community
you're right.
out there.
You're right. I do have to check out Virginia Dream, which plays right down the road. There are several summer clubs, several senior summer clubs that play in my region. Northern Virginia is very diverse and very populated. Of course, it's very densely populated. They're going to be teams. I will get out at some point. I will get out there at some point.
Yeah, well, let's make that a bit. We'll hire a camera guy, follow him around, document your experience of local amateur soccer.
It's very possible, if I have to think back, but it's very possible the only summer soccer game I have ever attended in my entire life was a Detroit City FC game prior to the jump to professional. That might be the only game at that level, MPSL at the time, I believe, I've ever been to.
That's a high bar. That's a pretty high bar, and one of the most special NPSL and American amateur experiences.
Yeah,
So
I saw the band. I
that's
saw the
one of
band
one.
before they went corporate. Rob, is what happened. I saw them before they signed the big deal. With the big record label and sold out. That's what I saw. That I saw the real deal.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about that scene is to your same note of seeing them before they sold out is the first game I ever went to was in I think 2017, and I heard a super hipster saying it's super mainstream now, and they were still an amateur team, and they were already saying that they were corporate,
right.
and that was like 3-4 years.
The Northern Guard had gone corporate because what? I don't know. They got
Because it was
bigger.
popular, I think.
They had too much fun foaling before games or something. What's going?
Oh, unfortunate local news. Foaling warehouse is folding.
Oh no, that's terrible news. What? People don't like throwing footballs at bowling pins anymore? What happened?
We're gonna have to look at the business model. I think it could. I mean, lots of things are closing. It's the way of the world
Rob,
these days. And then maybe there was a novelty. You go once or twice and then you move on.
I've heard that if your business is not doing well in one location, maybe you consider moving it to a different location.
Yeah, did the Foaling president say if nothing changes, we're gonna have to move? But that's a little bit on the nose, and we'll get to that. We are going to rate, at the end of the show, we'll do something more fun. We'll rate and examine some of the elite amateur teams' badges, kind of have a peek at some of the looks of teams that are doing well at the lower reaches of the table. But unfortunately, the meat and the potatoes of today's show is relocation and its looming threat in soccer and American sports. But before that, support us how you can. Like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up on the video. Those are all free ways to help us on the show here. Spread the knowledge and the awareness of Morning Kickaround. And if you'd like to support us, like our Ninja Jaguar friend and Mr. Bob with his donations, become an MK Ultra. You help the show, and you also get a part of the perks. You get your comments prioritized on screen during these live shows. You get bonus content created and sent to just you guys, and an access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server, which has some fantastic threads and lively conversations regarding Pro Rel, all the different leagues from USL, MLS, local ball to the national leagues, a little bit of English conversation too. Shout out to Shrimper Steve, keeping us updated on the South End United there, and everything in between, and even people creating their own clubs and a lot of like outside of the box thinking. So become an ultra or support in any which way you can.
There you go. That's how you do that. Perfectly done.
Are we going to start the show? Let's start the show. Here we go on Wednesday, August 19th, 2026's edition of Morning Kickaround. Here we go. The looming threat of relocation, something pretty uniquely American to American sports. If things aren't going well, or if the owner has a change of heart, your team could be ripped out of your community and moved elsewhere. There's a number of cities and teams in a variety of sports across the United States with that cloud of relocation kind of hovering. But we're going to kind of start off this conversation with Racing Louisville of the NWSL. Recently, the owner says something has to change.
First of all, I have the quote here from the owner of Racing Louisville, John Neese, who calls himself an accidental NWSL owner.
I want to ask about that.
This group, which launched Louisville FC in the USL Championship, ends up with an NWSL team. Obviously, they built themselves a nice little soccer stadium there in Louisville, Rob. And I guess before we talk about what John said, I'm curious, how do you, as an American sports fan, right? So you've got yourself an NFL team there in Detroit, Michigan. You got a baseball team, got a basketball team, got a hockey team. You guys are full up on professional sports outfits in Detroit, Michigan. How do you feel about relocation as a thing in American sports? How do you think about it?
I think it's the scourge of American sports. I think that threatening relocation, just kind of having that on the table, kind of using that as a leverage tool to kind of like extract tax dollars is a dirty game. And the fact that like it's not that rare. When they don't get their way, they just pick up and leave. Kind of the global understanding of teams and sports that, especially the ones with history in a city, are part of the city, part of the community, not necessarily the ownership's toy, or shouldn't at least be, and that there's something bigger than them, and they're kind of the stewards of that team within the community, within that city, rather than like the possessor of that thing.
Yeah,
and I just
this is the problem.
That, like American. So just for context, you asked about Detroit. That's not really looming because in the last 15 years, the Illiches and the owners of the teams kind of already played those cards and did a consolidation and brought all those major teams within the city limits.
Well,
that relocation isn't hanging over anymore, but that was always on that top back shelf throughout those negotiations to get those new buildings.
Right. Okay. That's one element of how relocation is used as a ploy. And if you want to talk about how it's impacted soccer, because of course, if you're an American sports fan, so I ask you, you know that there is a deep and long history of relocation. I mean, by no means is moving a team, a franchise from one city to another, a new idea. It's been done for 100 years in this country, more than that. I think, you know, if you really dive, if you're like, say, a Baltimore Orioles fan, you really dive into the history of this version of the Baltimore Orioles, you got to go back to the St. Louis Browns. And there's like all this stuff that happened way before your team came to be. But you think of Baltimore Orioles as the furniture, as the foundation. They're not going anywhere, right? That's not always the case. And obviously in soccer, again, we've had recently, and when I say recently, I mean, what, 8 years ago, the Columbus Crew saga, where a not local owner, and Anthony Precourt, a guy who wasn't from Columbus, bought the team, included in his contract with Major League Soccer that he could move the team X, Y, and Z reasons. Always apparently wanted to move the team to Austin. Well, shout out to the late, great Grant Wall for breaking that story. We followed that with incredible interest because as soccer fans, so you're right, like relocation is a scourge, and most Americans will think of it as a scourge, but we're also sort of numb to it, right? Cleveland, Baltimore, as I mentioned, being the recipient of a team after they had their team stolen in the Colts.
The Dodgers,
the Arizona Phoenix Coyotes and saga, all of that, the Dodgers. Well, that's, and there are still people alive who remember the Dodgers in Brooklyn who will tell you that's still the greatest crime in the history of sports, those kind of things. We see it as a scourge, and yet we're sort of numb to it. And then you throw in the soccer thing. And I think even if you're a general American sports fan, if you come to soccer or you're also a soccer fan, you fold in this idea that comes from the old world that's sacrosanct. That you don't. This is why MK Dons are seen as the greatest scourge, crime, disaster in English football by some people, because there was a team in Wimbledon. They were relocated to Milton Keynes, and that's just not a thing done. Right? There's the concept of a team being somebody's property to be moved is alien to the English mind, to the European mind, It is alien. So we as a soccer fans in America want our teams to be treated that same way, right? I think they should be. I understand why they're not. Again, legally, antitrust law, the billionaire owners investing in whatever. I understand why it's not, but that's what we want. And so anytime something like this pops up, and let me read the quote here from John Neese, the owner of Racing Louisville. We are not planning to move the team, but I think economic reality would be if you can't make it work here, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's the way I put it. If you build a restaurant somewhere and nobody comes in to eat, you either close it down or you move the restaurant or you change your menu. Now, that menu thing is, I guess, like a nod to the idea of investment, because this is also in this story from The Athletic where this quote comes from. It says they're looking for investment. Not that they're trying to move the team, not that he's rattling a saber here, right? He's making a threat. And this threat is, if somebody doesn't step up and give us a bunch of money to compete in the new world of NWSL that is richer than the world we bought into, well, then we're going to have to move the club. And again, I hate that this is a thing. There's also the issue of NWSL and the way it operates, which is very much like MLS, right, Rob?
Yes, single entity and all that. And to his point about the neighborhood getting richer, just 5 years ago, teams like Angel City and San Diego Wave joined the league for $2 to $5 million. And this year, when Haslam Group announced a Columbus-based NWSL expansion, it was over 200 million. So look at that inflation. And there's also been the additions of new kind of like DP sort of the notable players rule and stuff like that. So player contracts and expansions have just skyrocketed in the number. And so to his point, was Racing Louisville one of the original teams in this league, or definitely an early addition to the league, and they bought in at X level, and that cost has extrapolated. So I understand that the neighborhood's changed around him, but that rattling that saber, I mean, I guess you try to spark some action with that kind of a comment. It is an eye-opening,
Well, but this is
eyebrow-raising quote from an owner to rattle such a saber from an owner, not necessarily a team official, is notable. But yes, that a little bit
but
of
it's not
understanding that the environment around him has changed.
it's not just that. What I'm saying about the way NWSL operates is that it's a single entity like MLS. So every owner is an investor in the league. So every owner has an interest in the success of the business of the other teams in the league.
Yeah.
Right? Because that affects their investment. So if I own a team in the NWSL and my team is thriving, and there's a team down the road or a team on the other side of the country and they're not, I can't just go, oh, well, that's their problem. We're going to go win championships. I can't do anything about that. That's not, if this truly was like a restaurant situation, an independently run restaurant, and John East had one, and somebody had one in Portland, and somebody had one in Kansas City, and those independent restaurants would say, whatever, that's the competition, right? That doesn't affect me. In fact, it's better for me if that team is struggling, because that's one less team I have to worry about competing for championships in my league, right? Or for customers as a restaurant in my area. But the problem with the NWSL model, just like the MLS model, is it incentivizes everyone to care very much about how Racing Louisville is getting along. And the answer isn't, let's dig in and make it work in Louisville. I mean, that is an answer, and they should go as far as they can to make that the answer. But it's very easy to say, cut our losses, move them to a better market, find a better place for them to play. Find a better owner. Find an owner who's got a lot more money than John Neese and his group, who wants to have an NWSL team in their town. Let's say Cleveland. Let's say, I don't know, Dallas doesn't have an NWSL team. They got a Super League team that don't have an NWSL team. So, and again, like, I understand why MLS launched as a single entity league. I understand why NWSL organized that way too. It's a protection. It does create an environment where everybody has to help everybody else out, and it might keep your league alive in some of the dark times. But the other side of that coin is this. The other side of that coin is they could justify moving because it's better for the business. And here's Jessica Berman, the commissioner of the NWSL. It is always the preference of the league to maintain the continuity of the location of the way she talks is insane.
Yeah.
Just say you want to keep the team in Louisville. The continuity of the location. Jesus, Jessica.
Keep the team there.
It's not, but it is not a never. When she was asked about relocation, it is just not preferred. And where there are circumstances that warrant consideration, we will look at that. Remember, she operates as the commissioner of the league at the behest of the owner. She is basically the mouthpiece, the distilled mentality, distilled thoughts of the owners as a group. And she's saying it's on the table. Relocation is on the table, Rob.
Oh, that's a little frustrating, that kind of like lawyer speak that she's doing there. And it's like, yeah, we'd love to keep teams in their own cities. Isn't too much of a mouthful for her, but not on the table, or is always, what did she say? Always is on the table?
Always on the table. You want to see it again?
Table. I don't like that.
Let me show it to you again. It says,
but it's not a never.
It's not, it is just not preferred. Yeah. I said table. She did not say table because she doesn't speak plainly. She speaks in corporate terms. Now,
it's not preferred. It is troubling because, yeah, like you said, anytime. So if we look across the league and we're like, oh, attendance isn't so good at X city, does that mean that their conversations about relocation are going to start there?
Now look, remember that NWSL does have a history of relocation. The original Kansas City franchise struggled, didn't have investment. Someone bought them, took them to Utah. Now they're the Utah Royals, right? You could argue that was a best case scenario for that moment, right? But this is also, again, it creates cover for the owners and the operators of the league and Jessica Berman to say, well, we did what we could. Got to keep the league going. What do you want there not to be a league? We got to move a team. Now, obviously, in Kansas City, we have a good thing happening in the sense that new investment into women's soccer came in, built a stadium, turned them into the darlings of the NWSL now, making appearances on Ted Lasso, the Kansas City Current. So, they found a way. This is a little bit like Columbus in the sense that Columbus didn't lose their team. Somebody came in and bought that team, and Anthony Precourt got to go off to Austin and start his club the way he wanted to in Austin. And MLS did a decent job considering the circumstances of navigating that difficulty. I hope this doesn't come down to Louisville moving. And we seem to be a little ways from that. Now, in addition to what happened with this, and again, Soccer Connection, a guy who used to own an NWSL team and doesn't anymore because he divested after some controversy, is Merritt Paulson. And he popped up in Portland the last couple days commenting about the Portland Trailblazers situation because they have a new owner in Portland with the Trailblazers. He's not local, and he's threatening. He is fully rattling sabers. He is fully doing that, Rob. It is scaring people in Portland.
Yeah, he's that's beyond rattling a saber. I think he's wielding a gun inside of a crowded room with how aggressively he's trying to. Is that situation surrounding getting stadium money and all that?
Yeah, it's their argument. The argument of the new owner of the Trailblazers. You see your name in there is Dundon. Dundon. I actually don't follow that much basketball, so I can't tell you. I'm not, I know about this because it echoes, right? It's obviously tied into our connections to our teams. And he's saying the Moda Center, the arena for the Trailblazers is not up to snuff. And he's basically trying, as you said before, he's using the idea of relocating the team as leverage to try to extract concessions from the city of Portland. And Merritt Paulson, who has long been a part of Major League Soccer with his ownership of the Timbers, and again, once upon a time owned the Portland Thorns, he popped up with these quotes. He said this at a press conference. I don't know the context of the press conference, but he was asked about this. I have thoughts. First of all, the Blazers can't move. They are massively critical to the culture and the economic vitality of the city of Portland. End stop, period. And I think this is interesting. And then I have a little bit more here. When you buy a team, you're not just investing in a league. You're not just investing in a franchise. You're investing in the city. You're investing in the community, and that's essential. There needs to be a wake-up call for the county, the city, and the state to make this region a region that's attractive to invest in. This is apparently what Merritt Paulson said. Now, I don't know if Paulson is falling on the side of Dundon.
That's what I was going to ask. Is he pleading to the city to give them money, or is he pleading to Dundon to back off?
Right. Rich guy stepping up to defend another rich guy. Wouldn't be the first time. I don't, that's the thing. I don't want to put a cape on Merritt Paulson and say that he's coming to the rescue and he's speaking for the people. He is obviously saying don't move the team, which at its base is the most important thing here. And people are in the chat saying that Dundon 100% bought the team to try to move them because that's cheaper than expanding. Right. I watched on the plane to Puerto Rico when I was coming. I watched Blackberry. Have you seen Blackberry, Rob? Or no, actually, I watched it while I was here. Blackberry's a great movie. Watch Blackberry. It's a story of the company.
Oh,
it's really about the company. Yeah. And at one point, the guy who was like one of the original investors who helped turn Blackberry into this monster was trying to buy an NHL team. And he was going to move the Pittsburgh Penguins to Hamilton, Ontario. He bought an arena in Hamilton, Ontario to move the team. And, obviously, this is the early 2000s and the different environment, but it was interesting to see how he was just trying to will himself into ownership of a team in a league he cared about and do what he wants with it with no consideration. Think about the Pittsburgh Penguins, Rob, the depth of their history in that town, Mario Lemieux and all, like everything that Sidney Crosby, like the fact the Penguins are a key part of the sports identity of Pittsburgh did not matter.
I was going to say, but there'd be some bleeding Pittsburgh fans there. I mean, there would still be outrage now if the Penguins moved. But like, obviously the history got richer since that sort of early 2000s era, but they would be people screaming about this. But imagine the Hartford Whalers, not nearly as heartfelt as Pittsburgh, and people are still upset about Hartford.
Well, I mean, the Whalers, the Nordiques. I mean, you go down. Obviously, the NHL had a ton of relocation. That's a tough business. And look, I'm not necessarily an active fan, but at one point, I rooted for the Colorado Avalanche because my parents are from Colorado. I have roots there. I recognize that I'm a beneficiary of relocation if I'm an Avalanche fan, right? And it's a difficult, icky thing. And then you talk about again the idea that what Merritt Paulson is not saying explicitly, but I think is an undercurrent of this is he said you're investing in a community, you're investing in a city. Yes, you were doing that if you buy a sports franchise. But more than anything, you are just taking over custodianship of something that doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to you. Now, I know on paper you bought it. It's an asset. That's how we are treating sports teams in 2026. And there's probably no way back. And the days of, like, even in England, obviously, the days of clubs that are run by their community that run it, the idea is to break even every year. They've got a community board. And, there are people who maybe invest in the club here or there, but they do it because they want their team to win. You want West Brom to win something. You're not trying to get money out. You're not like, I'm going to put £1 million into West Brom so I can get 2 million next year. You're putting £1 million into West Brom because you want West Brom to win. You want them to put a trophy in the case so you can be proud of being from that part of England, right? Those days are obviously cooked. They were never a thing in America. We've always had rich guy owners dictating what happens with our sports teams in America, but that doesn't mean that our connections to these teams are any different. It doesn't mean that the way that we throw ourselves emotionally into supporting our teams is any different. And again, the tragedy that is baked into the way this works, and what Merritt Paulson is kind of speaking to, and what Dundon is trying to do with the Blazers, and maybe what John Neese is saying as he sort of threatens the idea that that Racing Louisville can't compete unless they maybe move, is none of that really matters anymore. So I always come back to this. Why? Why should I care about that team if the billionaire that owns it can say at any moment, I don't like this anymore. I'm taking this team somewhere else. Why would I care about it? Unless we are dislocating our fandom completely. Unless we are just fully saying it doesn't matter where the team plays, I'm going to follow them. Even if they change their name. Like, that's not, but I don't think that's the way our brains work.
That's how our brains work. Well, kind of going back to a comment earlier in the chat, a gentleman or a commenter from Jacksonville, which is a city that always faces relocation. I'm curious what his experience of being a Jaguars fan is like, having that relocation threat looming over you for probably at least a decade at this point. I mean, they're even talking about like Jaguars would be the easiest team to relocate to Europe even, and they lose games every single season to overseas. And
because they got that's the thing. Like, again, this is the play toy element, the play thing of the billionaire, right? So you have the Khans who own the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, by the way, the thing about the Jaguars that's tough is that they're not a legacy NFL team that goes back to, say, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Right.
So you can almost kind of talk yourself into, well, they don't matter their history doesn't matter as much. Easier to relocate the Jaguars than it would be to, say, relocate the Chicago Bears, who are kind of getting really relocated, but let's not get into that. I think that's probably a problem for some. And then again, the Jaguars are owned by a family that has interests in a London-based soccer club and have clearly been focused on London as a market for all of their sports holdings. And man, yeah, that idea of like, you're saying to the fans in Jacksonville, you got them over a barrel. This is what sucks. You say to the fans in Jacksonville, well, you better show up or we might move the team. The attendance is bad here in Jacksonville for the Jaguars. You better show up or we're going to move the team. It's like, dude, you're major leaguing this.
Yeah, that's funny that was a comedy, but that's a reality now.
Absolutely, that's a reality. We'll tank this. Attendance is bad. I have justification now to move. So
going back to the biggest public defense of a team relocating obviously was the Save the Crew movement, and they were doing things very much almost like ripped out of the script from Major League, like closing down certain entrances, making the experience not as appealing, to almost like make that to lower attendance, like even like put that on steroids, the reduction of attendance, and those sort of things came out, which almost added fuel to the fire to Save the Crew. But going to a team in Major League Soccer that has this cloud hanging over them now is Vancouver Whitecaps. Yes. And there's a Save the Caps movement going on, but I'm curious if the way that media is consumed now, is there one place where a movement can meet and swell to have that to the same extent that Save the Crew did?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I was doing my American soccer focused radio show on Sirius XMFC during the Save the Crew period, and we were talking about it every day, right? And I don't know, like, I'm not going to sit here and claim that my show in the middle of the day on a paid radio service made a massive impact. I think it was a small part of a larger voice that was coalescing around the crew and the Save the Crew situation. But I do think it's worth pointing out that they did save the crew, right? Now, they saved the crew in large part because they wouldn't shut up and they made it uncomfortable for everybody involved, but also because a billionaire came in and saved them, right? A billionaire stepped in. So even when you can like, oh my God, we saved the crew. What a great achievement for the community of Columbus and the businesses of Columbus who stepped up. It's like, yeah, but the
It
Haslam's
still
had to
took
step
what?
in.
It still took what?
Yeah, and again, like you could argue that, and I'm sure would be my argument, that the Save the Crew movement pushed Don Garber and the rest of Major League Soccer's power brokers into a place of saying, okay, fine, let's figure out something that allows there to be a team in Columbus and lets Anthony Precourt go off and do his thing. And that's that's negotiating in the room. All right, other owners, are we going to let Anthony have what amounts to an expansion team in Austin for no expansion fee? Right? Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to pass on an expansion fee for Austin, Texas, so that Anthony Precourt can go have his team and the crew don't lose? Columbus doesn't lose the crew. And oh, by the way, we got to go find the owner. Oh, wait, the Haslams are here. They own the Browns. They're ready to step in. They're willing to build a stadium. They see this as a good investment. Like even the organic elements, the grassroots nature, even the community rallying has this corporate ick attached to it, right? This investment ick where it's not about the Haslams doing it because they care about the crew. They are connected to the crew. The again, the fact that you need a billionaire period to own a club for it to operate is a problem, right? That in and of itself is a problem. And yet we all know that unless that happens at the MLS level, and you better be very wealthy to run an NWSL team now, you're not competing not just within the league, right? You're not competing globally. And we don't let ourselves as American soccer fans go, it's okay if my team doesn't play the best soccer as long as they represent me, as long as they are my team. I'm going to Argentina in a month and a half, Rob. I've talked about this with you, letting the ultras know. Follow me on Instagram. I'm probably going to be posting a bunch of stuff. I'm very interested. It's not a football trip. It's a anniversary birthday trip with my wife. We're going to be doing something, but I've been learning about soccer in Argentina a bit because it's my game and I love it. And Boca Juniors, right?
Of course.
Put
me in your suitcase if you go there.
Okay. River Plate, right? You might know Independiente, or you might know Estudiantes, or you might know a couple of other teams.
The big names.
Do you know that there's a team in Mendoza, which is the wine region of Argentina, that just played in Copa Libertadores knocked out by Fluminense, which, tough. But I was reading up on this team. They play in a 12,000 seat stadium. They've barely been in the top division of Argentine football, but they've been around since 1913. Right? They're called the Leper because they once were connected to a hospital where leopards, like they did a fundraiser, so everybody called them the Lepers, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. We'll just call ourselves the Lepers. We're the Lepers.
That's fun.
That idea, that connection that community has to that team, because they fill up their stadium every time they play. Doesn't matter what division they're in. Doesn't matter who they're playing. Doesn't matter if Boca's in town or there's some other team you've never heard of. Right? They show up. They support their team. That's never going to change. And the idea of moving this team is never going to happen. It's never going to, no one is ever going to conceive of that idea. And I know
ownership probably doesn't think that's within their power to move it either.
No,
right?
I don't. And I don't even know if their structure as a club in terms of quote unquote ownership works that way. Right. And this is not to say that Argentine football is better, because there are lots of problems with Argentine football. Right. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not compete. Like those teams might be okay in the Copa Lib, although Brazil dominates Copa Lib these days. Some Boca and River and a couple other teams might be okay in Copa Lib. But I don't, and like I don't know, like that they go to their matches or they watch their games on TV and they think, man, I can't believe we're not as good as the European leagues. We got to do more to get better so we can be like the European leagues. We better bring in some billionaire investment and build new stadiums so we can be like the European leagues. That's not something they think about. I mean, I'm generalizing. I'm going to talk to Argentines to figure that out. But getting a paycheck in Argentina is iffy. They have other concerns. My point is, we want it both ways, right? We want these clubs to be ours, to be community property, to be about civic pride, to be to be so deep in the ground as rooted in our communities that they could not possibly be torn away. But we also want the money to come in so that we can buy the $15 million player so that, maybe we can win the championship, but also win a CONCACAF championship, but also claim our league is as good as X European league. A lot of people think that.
So, question to you, kind of translating what you're saying, like people down there in that remote region of Argentina, they're going to support their team, whichever league it's in. I saw one of our ultras hypothesizing instead of moving city, maybe move Racing Louisville to the USL Gainsbridge Super League instead. Maybe the math's a little different.
Look, we do have examples of teams in American soccer who went, oh, I'm using your word. Oh, this league is not the right league for us. We're going to change leagues. Now, sometimes there is cynical motivation involved in that because it's an owner and they don't like the way USL operates and they jump to the NASL 2.0 or whatever. But we've also had teams like Richmond Kickers come to mind. Right? And I don't want to put a cape on them either, right? I don't want to say that the Ukrop family are heroes because they decided to self-relegate. But if the question is, oh man, we can't compete in this league, we're either going to have to move our team, sell our team and have it maybe moved, or shut it down, I would much rather a team be like, no, this is not the right league for us. Let's go down. It would be bad for NWSL, be a bad look if Racing Louisville dropped out of the NWSL and moved to the Gamebridge Super League, even though that's a first division league. It would be a bad look for NWSL. But man, it probably would be, it would be way better than the alternative, which is relocating the team out of Louisville. I don't want that. Yeah, shout out to Taylor Rockwell. Yeah, this man, Dan knows about my guy, Taylor Rockwell. Best hugger in the game, Taylor Rockwell. That's the thing you might not know about him.
The best what in the game?
The best hugger in the game. Gives great hugs, that Taylor Rockwell. Yeah, he's a hugger.
Well, he sounds like a warm individual through the podcaster. So I'm glad that that's a reality. Before we move on, Dan Kane bringing up an interesting message that kind of reflects back to when Brian, we were talking about USL League One and trying to build Pro Rel right now. But this is also like trying to build established teams from the get-go. He said American soccer is kind of playing, building the airplane mid-air. And Dan Kane is saying, like, most of the teams we know as them they are now, they were smaller things. They joined, they coalesced, they became Uniteds and stuff like that. But we're going at it from at the top, making it exist now at the level that we're
bar. We set the bar so high from the very beginning. All of those, to Dan's point, all of those European giants, right? All the Uniteds. The reason the word United was applied to clubs is because multiple clubs came together and then were united, right? And so when we hear an American soccer club is calling itself United, we're like, wait a second, what? What's going on there? I don't get too precious about that. Modern branding is what it is. I get it. But that idea that we can let things happen that way. Look, this is why Detroit, we lionize Detroit, we lionize Chattanooga FC. We talk about the grassroots growth of those clubs, but we barely have the patience. That's somebody else has to do that. I don't want my club to have to do that. I don't want my club to be in NPSL for 6 years before we go pro. Like, I'm saying you in the general sense. I think a lot of fans are too impatient for that. And obviously there's no guarantee of it either. And of course, this is where Pro Rel comes in, and people would argue if you put in a Pro Rel system, it gives people something to aim for, it gives them a goal. You can obviously build towards this. And yes, in a perfect world, that would be a thing. I would also point out it's a massive country. So you would have to figure out how to organize that so you create those incentives. But man, and I don't think there's any way to write into law, once a club is established in a town, you can't possibly move it. It's not allowed to be moved. It belongs, unless the city is invested in it, which we don't want because that's our tax. We don't have tax dollars going to owning a soccer team, even if they own the stadium. It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult indeed, but that's where we are right now. A few teams across the United States with the threat of relocation looming. Continue the conversation in the chat, guys. Give us some feedback. What do you think is a solution? What could Racing Louisville do? And will they, do you think that they will end up moving? We shall see, and fingers crossed that the fans keep their team. But we are going to come back with something a little bit more lighthearted. We're going to look at some badges you may not know. Stick with us here on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Welcome back in here, Morning Kickaround. I'm Robert. He's Jason, kind of rounding off our conversation here on Wednesday morning. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of your comments. But something that's kind of timely, a little bit more fun. U.S. Open Cup announced their automatic qualifiers to next year's U.S. Open Cup. And I believe there's 16 amateur teams have qualified directly. And on screen here, we have the 9 that have qualified straight through from the USL2. I know Farolito's won NPSL, and they'll be in there. But these are the 9 USL2 teams that have qualified for next year's U.S. Open Cup. And there's a wide variety of badges here. Some you may know, some you may not. So I thought it would be kind of fun to take a look at some of these badges of some of the top performers at the summer amateur level.
Yeah, so this is always fun. And first of all, congratulations to all these teams. We have good stories here, right? I think that's the thing that I like about this is qualification in and of itself creates a story around these teams, but we also get, we get to kind of celebrate the growth in a lot of these cases. So this is about badges, which I'm always into, but Vermont Green, undeniably a great story in American soccer, multiple time champions of that USL2 level. Minneapolis City, an incredibly active local, responsive, on the ground grassroots soccer club. They've sent me a shirt, so I have to say nice things about them. It's at home, obviously. Big wing on it. Love that look.
Both of those two teams that you spotlighted right off the bat, I believe, have never had losing seasons.
Okay, that's incredible. That speaks to them. Ballard FC is also a great story up there in the North Pacific Northwest. They do big numbers for attendance. People love them. I think we've talked about Ballard on this show multiple times.
We've referenced them on a number of occasions. Haven't actually had a specific guest on, but if you didn't catch it, we had the team president or the sporting director for Vermont Green on the show a week or two ago. Great interview. Check that out.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. All right. So badge review. Now, do we want to give scores here, Rob? Do we want to just get maybe like it's almost like superlatives in high school, like badge most likely to be on a shirt I'd wear kind of thing? I don't know. Like, how do you want to do this badge review? Because I think I don't want to go in negative places necessarily, because I know how hard it is for these clubs to, just kind of stay operating.
Yeah. So, okay. A kind of a scale, hot, acceptable, or review. How about like a good and bad and the ugly? So that's hot, passable, or go back to the drawing board sort of a thing. And as I'm looking at it now, there's a lot of newer teams and badges here. So it kind of speaks to kind of like who is doing well, who are the top performers, because these are performance related berths into the Open Cup. I think 7 division winners and then 2 cup winners in the mix here. But should we start at the top left? Asheville City, a beautiful place from what I heard. If I'm going to give it one of our 3, that's hot, a passable, or redraw it, I'm going to go middle. I'd say it's passable. It's nice, clean, obviously had some thought and some actual graphic design put into it, but a little bit plain with the colors, in my opinion.
I mean, the color scheme is simple. It's just a version of blue and white. I assume we have some sort of notable civic architecture there in the middle of that. So we've got, I'm actually going to read the description. Some of this we have knowledge about. Some of these teams we have some knowledge about. Some of them we're learning. So this crest was designed with 4 elements in mind in order to represent the city of Asheville. The colors are blue haze and white rub. The blue haze colors represents the blue haze seen on the nearby Smoky Mountains. I do like that, a nod to Smoky Mountains. The color white is the color of all colors, alluding to the spirit of inclusion in Nashville. All right, you try. Okay, guys, I got it. The silhouette is the crest of Asheville City Hall. So that's that little middle piece. Now, I can't blow this up for anybody watching at home, but go look at this badge. it does evoke a building. It also kind of looks like a little part you find in your junk drawer, maybe. Like, what does this go to? Like, where did this piece come from? What whose remote control car lost this thing in this house? That is, I don't know. It's okay. It's not terrible. I don't love the rounded A because I don't think that looks like an A, Rob.
I actually, until you said that, I honestly didn't see that as an A. I thought it was just some graphical elements to heighten the middle there. But as I, kind of focus in on it, I see it
Passable. You're
pretty
right. It's passable, this one. Yeah.
passable. So we go Asheville City, passable. Obviously, there's some effort and some thought put into it. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't spark. I'm seeing some comments that the Ballard, the Minneapolis, and Vermont Green all stick out when watching on a small screen. So that's notable too. So we'll move to the aforementioned Ballard FC. From what I understand, they're embedded in a neighborhood in the metropolitan area of Seattle.
Yes.
I met a fan there, a fan of the Michigan guy who came back to visit, who lives in Seattle. He said those game day experiences are excellent. They're another team that I don't think have faced too much losing in their history. And then they get big, they get into the thousands of their attendance. So they're well funded from the support. And I've even seen, I think it was one of the really good kind of grassroots Instagram accounts that kind of visits a lot of grounds. They watched a game from, there's like a hill next to the stadium. They're like watching the game from like up in the shrubberies next to the stadium, which is always fun. But their badge, you don't see that color scheme on badges too much. It's a shield shape and it's got lifting bridges. So I'm assuming that that's a geographical element of
that's
that part
the
of Seattle.
Ballard Bridge. That's the Ballard Bridge. I'm going to give this. I like it. I'm not going to be too effusive with my praise. I like it. The color scheme is interesting, and as you said, you don't see it a lot. I think One Knox also has a color scheme in that realm, which is like a lot of sunset elements, colors like that. Apparently, this was designed by a local agency, so you've got that. I always like that. Going for a local agency. Ballard's strong. That's strong. I mean, I could do with a little less of just the orange, red, yellow color scheme. Like not less, but I could do with something else mixed in. But I don't think this is bad. And again, the sun behind the bridge as a local reference is pretty good. Let's move on because we don't want to belabor these. Colorado Storm, Rob. Colorado Storm Soccer Club. With some sort of strange S infinity symbol thing happening there. What do you got?
So I'm not super familiar with Colorado Storm, but at first glance, its design reminds me of what the Sarasota Paradise's badge a little bit with that color scheme. Yes. When I think of Colorado, I don't necessarily think of teal colors, but I'm seeing that this is a rebranding. A recent rebranding of their look too. So this is newer to Colorado Storm. I give this middle. It's passable, but not my favorite. I wouldn't, I'm not picking this out of this group of 9. That's for sure.
One thing I would say about Asheville City and this one, I understand soccer club. I like the words being soccer club being on the badge because I'm American. I like that. Just don't, just lean into the soccer thing. It's a little tough to read, but again, maybe that's the small screen that we're working with here today. So I don't want to be too cruel. It's okay. What does it say? Is that the founding year of the club?
It says 1967.
Wow.
So
okay.
It might be. I think they might. When I'm looking at just quick search here, I think they might be a youth club that has since sprouted into this. But
yeah, I think that's right. Apparently, as you said, a rebrand. They used to just be the Colorado Rapids Youth Soccer Club, and now they have their own identity, which is the Colorado Storm Soccer Club. You can go see this at coloradostorm.com. This is a very, they lead with this on their website, I guess. So this is pretty new. I mean, must be like a not too long, like a couple of months, I guess. Storm Reborn. It's okay. I think I don't like those thin lines in the roundel, and I also think the round badge is kind of out. But we'll move on. Laredo Heat, Rob, out there in Texas. What you got?
All right, Laredo Heat, obviously on theme. My grandfather worked for International Harvester, kind of a truck and a farming equipment company. And this badge looks like the International Harvester logo with a little bit of sizzle on it. So I like that it's different. It doesn't look like any of the other badges on here, but it's not my favorite. I give that another mid grade.
It's a mid grade. It's a I could design this one kind of look, which if I could design it, it's probably not the best, right? It's probably not special. It does the job. The negative space kind of doesn't work with for me, like this idea that like the L and the H are combined, but there's the foot on the L that changes. My brain doesn't see the H as well as I would like to. So yeah, but a little sizzle, little flame on it. It's not terrible. All right, Little Rock Rangers, Rob. There's a
Little
lot going
Rock
on in this
Rangers.
one.
Yeah, it's a busy one. It kind of reminds me of like a more of an older style pre-Premier League English sort of badge where there was a lot more detail and hand stitching and stuff on those badges.
Well, like it was the city badge, and they just kind of like added a soccer element or whatever, or like put it in the shield.
The
Yeah.
coat of arms sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. We've
So
got
I like it. I like it. I mean, it's not like doesn't smash you over the head like that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, but I like it. I'll give that a hot.
I'll say this. It's not terrible. I kind of dig it. Two little soccer balls on there. Are those necessary? I don't know. The prancing deer does kind of scream Christmas to me. So I've got a little bit of that disconnect. Like, oh, we got some reindeer dancing in the woods in Little Rock. Is that right? I see the outline of Arkansas with the star. Okay. Little Rock's the capital of Arkansas. The 16. I know that's a reference to the year the club was founded, 2016.
Happy 10 years, Little Rock.
Do you know that they play in the football stadium of the University of Arkansas?
You're
So
kidding me.
their capacity is listed as 54,000 for Little Rock Rangers.
What's their consecutive sellout streak out there?
Man, I don't know. That's great though. All right, Minneapolis City, right there with the with a pretty. I'll say this for Minneapolis City, and again, they've sent me shirts. I kind of dig everything that they do.
Yeah, I was going to say their branding is so recognizable that even in my own mind, I forget that they're USL 2. They're so prominent and I see their stuff more places than most. I forget. I almost like kind of blur them in with kind of the professional ranks in my mind, even though obviously they're a really successful USL 2 team. And I know they were definitely aggrieved by not being able to host the playoffs. I guess they've won their division every year, but they've never been able to host playoffs. So a little bit of a question mark over the USL 2 playoff system, but one of the most unique soccer brand identities in the country.
It's very modern, but it's modern in a good way. Like it's not modern in a they're trying too hard kind of way. It's modern in like I get okay. It's simple. It maybe even being simple and clean is overplayed in 2026. But man, I have no problem with this. Again, as you said, it is immediately recommended. They call themselves the Crows. I mean, that's just cool. Like they figured it out. I think in terms of branding for a lower division soccer club, right? All right, let's move on. This one is going to split some opinion.
So, what was your rating? Did you give it?
I'll give it whatever the highest rating is for Minneapolis City. I'm 100% on board.
The Crows are hot, and according
you can easily read the words on the badge. They stand out. It's not overly busy, complicated. Obviously, it's great for stickers. It's great for a jersey. It just works. So this is hot or whatever we're saying. How do you say it in Minnesota? How would you say that anyway?
Oh, that's awfully hot.
Oh no, I don't like that at all.
All right. Bottom left of the screen. We're on the bottom row now. Team very successful, and we actually have a friend, mutual friend, Josh Hackala, worked for them for some years, and I think he helps out still. But one of the most successful teams in USL 2 in a very unique setting right there on the East Coast, but probably the most 90s clip art badge that is still the primary badge for any team, really.
Yeah. By the way, Josh Hackala apparently coined the name The Beach House for their stadium there in Ocean City, New Jersey. Hey. So we've got that international symbol for storm thing with the two, like, I don't know what that's called. I know it's that's
like what you see on like a lower budget weather channel. That's the logo that moves across the Atlantic Ocean when you're
I think it's not lower budget. I think that's pretty much standard for like, there's a hurricane coming. This is what it looks like in terms of representation. the like almost graffiti or like
That's 1993 font.
it's so good though. I ironically like this one. I will admit to that. I don't it's not good, but it's not good in a way I like. You know what I'm saying? I'm like it's in a way that I appreciate as an old school American soccer fan.
Yeah, for those who don't know what a nor'easter is, it's a storm, and then so that the hurricane sort of symbol goes. It's on theme with the name of the team on nor'easter. Weird word, but it is an actual thing. But this is like so 90s and also youth
But
soccer coated with like
yeah,
the soccer
yeah.
ball and everything. But
The
now
soccer ball.
you got to lean
Yeah.
into it now at this point if it's been
Well,
your
that's what
thing
I'm
for so
saying. So
long.
the Telstar ball, and they went with the 3D-ish Telstar ball instead of the flat version of the ball, which you can see there's sort of a flat version in the Little Rock logo, right? That little tiny ball that's sort of flattened out. Um, that part is very 90s, clearly. Okay, and two different fonts, and it's all over the map. The thing is, this club started in '96. And at this point, like if you're like, whatever, we made a logo, who cares? We're just playing some amateur soccer. Nobody gives a crap about our logo anyway. And then one day it's like, oh, the logo matters. But now we stand out because we have a 90s logo. So like you said, you got to lean into it. Now you can't give up on your logo 30 years into your existence, right?
All right, Ocean City, for sticking with it, and happy 30 years of being a an operational soccer team. Not everyone can say that, so happy
They
30, and you got a hot logo.
they were the Barons until 2008 when they rebranded. So
Oh,
it's
so
worth pointing
there is
out.
a rebrand in there. So this logo
Yes.
isn't that actually kind of makes it more interesting that this 90s epitome logo was in fact not made in the
It
90s.
was retro in '08, and now it's like extra retro. All right, San Francisco City FC, Rob.
All right, that looks like a cattle prod. I'm nervous I'm gonna get prodded by this logo. I know they're an excellent team. They made the playoffs. I've been following their play-by-play commentator on their journey. They wear I think it's like a houndtooth suits on their broadcasts. The logo is unique. It's an oval, not too many oval shapes, kind of a rugby ball sort of a shape. They got the old
Mhm.
fashioned ball there that's electrified. Apparently, I'm middling on this. I'm giving it the neutral.
Well, this is new. This is relatively new. This is a rebrand for SF City SC. And if you go to their website, you can tell 100% they're leaning into our image is saleable. Like we're trying to get jerseys on people. Their shop is like a bunch of very cool young people standing around in San Francisco wearing their shirt, wearing their kit. So, uh, you know, on a train. I don't know if they're used. They have an older badge that had the Golden Gate Bridge and this tower on it. I don't know if that is like I don't know how they're and they also have an interconnected SFC thing, like like a Detroit Tigers kind of old school or St. Louis Cardinals kind of STL thing. I don't know. I don't know which one is their main logo. I guess this is their main logo. It's it's a little too twee. It's a little too trying too hard for me. I'm going to give it a middling grade. And again, old school ball is a choice. It better work, and I'm not sure it does.
All right, the ninth USL2 team. That's an automatic qualifier for the 2027 US Open Cup, back-to-back national champions. And the badge creator is also the founder of the team, Vermont Green. How about that one?
It's great. Come on, it's great. I know it's like a kind of funny, almost childlike thing, like it's almost like you turn on your television and go over to Nick Jr. Does that still exist? Probably not. Or you go, you'd find a show somewhere and it's like, oh, it's a happy mountain. This is going to be a good show for my kid. It's come on. It's so unique, Rob. It's so great.
Yeah, I got to give that the hot rating. Like you said, it's got some childlike fun to it. It looks good. It doesn't
It
look
doesn't
like
take
anything
itself too
else.
seriously. And that's
And it doesn't
that's
look
what I
like
love
anything
about
else.
Matthew Wolf. He didn't take himself too seriously with this.
And I'm curious. There looks like there's maybe in the top two corners there. Matt Wolf has created so many badges that there's possible that there's other Matt Wolf designed badges on this graphic. Maybe Asheville, maybe one of the other ones, but Vermont Green. Do they top the link in amongst this group of 9 here?
Um, Man, I'm still partial probably to Minneapolis City over Vermont Green. I think what matters though is that it represents the club. Like it becomes connected to how the people think about their club and the identity of the place and the sort of attitude of the fans and what they want to be. Right? Minneapolis City has an edgy quality to them. Right? They have this thing about they're very locally focused, but they have an edgy quality about them. They're kind of the counterculture club in Minnesota, which has a professional soccer team. Minnesota United is down the street in St. Paul. Vermont Green is just like that. I haven't, I've been maybe once, been a long time. I don't know a lot of people from Vermont. I can't tell you about how they think and live, but to me, that feels like exactly what Vermont people would want out of their soccer team badge, right? Come on.
Bob Ross made that mountain, according to Paul here. But do you agree with our rankings of these 9 USL2 automatic qualifiers for the 2027 US Open Cup? The semifinals for this year's edition come in September, I think the same weekend around the time that we are doing Kickathon 2. Maybe we'll take a look in the next couple of weeks at the other amateur teams. Maybe we'll do a review of some other leagues, amateur teams that have qualified for next year's Open Cup. That might be a fun way to look at even more badges. But thank you guys for chiming in. And for context, these are probably some of the higher budget amateur teams across the United States. So I don't feel so bad critiquing them if they've, kind of workshopped these and so to speak. It's not just, a volunteer for the team, putting forth their best efforts. These are, quote unquote, higher budget teams at the amateur levels, but we could take a look out across the landscape at a few more teams as we approach the next round of the 2026 edition of the U.S. Open Cup. We've talked relocation. We've talked badges. You got anything else before we get out of here for Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround?
No, Rob, I got to pack. I'm on a plane this afternoon to get back to the mainland in Virginia, and very excited to do that. So I think that's going to be it for us. Appreciate everybody. One more call. Remember, Kickathon. Back for more kicks, the kickening. Sorry,
I love the kickening is fun. I smile every time I say the kickening.
Kickathon 2, the kickening is happening on September 16th, 9 a.m. to ? It's like a party invitation. It's like, hey, we're gonna really have a good time. Come by for a barbecue, and who knows when it's gonna? We might do shots. We don't know.
Might do shots. Might throw an extra round of burgers on at the end. You never know.
You know what? We're under no obligation. We are not bound by FCC rules. If we want to do shots on Kickathon 2, we can do shots on Kickathon 2.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that you're okay with consumption on the show, because we had an opportunity to sip the 2026 World Cup official champagne, and we didn't take them up on it.
That felt like a sellout move that I wasn't comfortable with. So, and obviously, anything related to FIFA gets you real uncomfortable in 2026. So I understand, Rob, you're right. We could have been involved in a champagne campaign and sipped on the show. But I think actually what we need to do is considering how dotted our map is, we need to find some way to tie our consumption, maybe on Kickathon 2, the kickening, although I might have to do radio in that afternoon, so it might be dicey. But one day we will do a consumption show, and maybe it's like, okay, give us some recs from your neck of the woods. Let's dot the map with our craft brewed beer choices here on Morning Kickaround. That's just an idea. Just throwing that out there. Came out of nowhere.
It would be interesting. Yeah, sip the brews of our locations from where our members are. Well, when we were on site in Rhode Island, I learned and sipped and sampled Naga Handset. So that's the local brew out there. I think I nailed that. And then I'm not sure if there was a local brew out in New Mexico that we tried.
Probably
I know they were
did.
big on the Chiles.
Probably did. We probably did. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what we imbibed in New Mexico that might have been local, but I'm sure there's something out there that we tried. But yes, Narragansett Is that how you said it?
No, he's saying I'm not even close. I think I said Narragansett and Narragansett. My apologies.
It's all right.
I lost my reading glasses again.
Don't
I
have your
only
reading
get my
glasses.
reading glasses
That's-
on one show a month.
That's the excuse. That's the excuse. He can't see the words, guys. He couldn't see the word he had in his head, which is the beer he tried in Rhode Island. That's why
it was that good. I forgot how to say it. You know what I mean? But I think that's about time for us here today. We will see you again on Friday. Until then, remain brave, stay safe, and of course, enjoy your soccer.